All right, well, welcome everyone to this week's Tipple's Brews and Wine tasting. This week we are doing our first comparative tasting. So we are going to be tasting two Syrahs from very different parts of the world and with a different style of winemaking involved, but same grape.
Yep.
So,
I'm Elizabeth Vaudrey.
and I'm Jeff Vaudrey, the owners of Tipple's Brews and Wines. I told you I was excited to get started.
He's just like,
I'm ready
let's get
to
into
go.
The wine. Start drinking now.
That's right. So we're going to be drinking. Let's go ahead and pull up the slide. We'll talk about the two wines.
Okay.
Thanks.
You don't have it already.
I did.
Well, see, there's a thing there. So hold on 1 second, guys. I don't know. What did you do? There it is.
Okay.
Okay.
I need to put it on.
I can't until after I share it.
Okay.
Okay. There we are.
Thank you. That's weird. First time that's ever happened, but here we go. All right. So this week we're going to be drinking the Pundit Syrah from the Columbia Valley in Washington State, and the Penfold's Max Shiraz from Southern Australia.
Same grape.
Same exact grape, different name. Good point. Australians call Syrah Shiraz. That's just how they do.
Okay, yep. And Americans call Shiraz Syrah.
That's right. As do the French. So, who are really the originators of this grape. So we're going to be running from. We're going to begin. The first wine we will pour tonight will be the Pundit. The Washingtonian is where we start with the owl on the label. The second one that we will taste will be the Penfold Shiraz from Australia. So let's jump back to us, please.
Okay. You're going to do it. Mm-hmm. There we go.
All right. If you haven't already, go ahead and open up your wines. Since this is a red, the ideal serving temperature is going to be between 55 and 65 degrees as your start. I like to throw my reds in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes before I open them and then let them warm up as we enjoy it. And you will taste a difference as it comes through. That temperature is based on European cellar temperatures, which is the traditional service temperature. All right, let's go ahead and pour these. We'll talk about pairings. So,
anybody else have any issues opening the corks on these wines?
No.
Yeah, ours was kind of falling apart.
Ours shredded. So we're just straining them.
The Shiraz, I think, was the one that I had an issue with, and I was just like, I started opening, I was like, oh no, and then I was fine. It salvaged it, but there was like a moment there where I started.
Yeah, ours are fine.
Yeah, it didn't have an issue.
We crossed the threshold of that moment.
Thing as Julian.
Yeah, I tell you, when it comes to opening them up, and I know what you're talking about. Where there was some flexibility on these corks. When it comes to that, when you're pulling and you feel that cork start to maybe begin to give it a minute and just leave the tension where it is. Don't muscle through, and it's probably going to give and then come out. So that's one of the big things that will break a cork is if you begin to feel some give and you just don't worry about it and you let it rip, then you're more often going to break corks. Nothing's going to be 100%, but give that a shot in the future. So you can see this is, neither one of these are going to be gentle beef. Syrah is simply not a gentle grape varietal. It's a big, bold grape varietal. So we're going to have some fun tonight. Great pairings for both of these would be grilled meats and vegetables, aged hard cheeses, hearty stews, pot roast, things like that. They can handle almost anything you can throw at them, and they will stomp all over fish and chicken, and they'll just completely, all you'll taste is the wine. So for the first one, let's dive in a little bit. It is 90% Syrah, 4% Grenache, 4% Mourvedre, and 2% Viognier, which is a white wine grape, by the way. Interesting. And
why do they throw that in there?
Just acidity and freshness.
Okay.
It is something that is done in France. And what we'll talk about later on is this is actually made by French winemakers in the state of Washington, which is why it's one of the fun ways for us to have a really neat comparison, because there's an old world styling to the wine making
Mhm.
of this New World wine.
And these are actual Frenchmen
Mhm.
that are making it, not American French like you.
No, actually,
Okay.
very famous Rhone. So,
Okay.
and we've had wines from the Rhone.
Mhm.
So, southeastern France, very famous within their field. So,
I really like it.
right, it's going to be a lot of blueberry and black cherry, red plum. It's a deep purpley kind of effect, whether on the nose or on the palate.
Will you hand me those?
Oh, the
Yeah.
corks.
So Jeff, when he opened them, he came, I was in the other room and he came and he's like, look at these corks. This is what we're drinking tonight. He was so excited. Yeah.
Right. Well,
They
what's
look
interesting too,
fantastic.
if you look at your corks at the bottom, you'll see the one that we're drinking now is almost pitch black. It's a
Mhm.
purpley black. And then the Australian that we'll be drinking is a bit more of a purple with a bit
Like
of
a
a
garnet.
garnet going
Mhm.
in there. And we will taste, I almost hate to force people's thoughts in any direction, but to me, you will taste a purpleness in this one, and you will taste more of a red fruited in the secondary. So let's get back to Washington here. Alcohol content in this guy is 14.5%. Interestingly, they're both exactly the same alcohol content.
Oh, wow.
They're both 14.5% tonight. Secondary characteristics. This is a whole cluster fermentation. I mean, a whole cluster crush rather. So they actually don't take the grapes off of the stems.
Okay.
So they're crushing it there, which gives you that little bit of like a brambly quality. It's like an herby. It's a secondary. You get past it, but as you get past the fruit, you get kind of an herbiness, almost a snap stemminess going on in there, and that's what the reference bramble references that,
Okay.
where it's a little bit of I don't know if you ever picked fresh berries, but you have a little bit of that stem
Mhm.
leaf that's
Mhm.
dry on top, and it gives you a bit of an herby quality with there. That's what it's
I'm
referencing.
definitely getting a little bit of an herby quality. I wouldn't have known it came from the stems,
Mm.
but
The other thing that can add by leaving the stems is a little more tannin. So this is a very velvety wine, very smooth. It does dry and tighten on the finish. So it comes in incredibly smooth and it finishes with a little bit of a grip.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
for
it's
sure.
no wimp, but it's on the finish in a nice drying.
Yeah, it does taste very smooth. I'm not getting the bite on the, like when I'm first, drinking it.
Mhm.
I'm trying not to do double entendres, but the finish, yeah, I'm definitely getting the bite then. Mhm.
All right. Now I can go through, and I was going back and forth on, I could talk about all the regions in the area and the winemaker for each one individually, or have us taste them back to back and then just cover it while
I'd like
we
to
enjoy.
taste them back to
So
back. But
that's
what do you
kind of what
guys
I was
think?
thinking.
Okay,
Of. Yeah.
all right, yeah.
That was my inclination. So let's jump over and pour a lovely bottle from down under, and we'll taste the difference in style, which I think will be fun. And then we can discuss where they're from and where some of those differences come from. I'd say I'm getting more cherry on the nose.
I feel like the second one is more fruit forward than the first one, but I could be totally wrong on that. Could you comment? Like, what do you think?
I'm assessing the wine.
He's just like, how do I tell her she's wrong?
No,
So wrong.
I would say, as far as fruit forward behavior on the wine, they're equal,
Okay.
but they are different. In that the first one, once again, I'm thinking plums and blueberries on that, as well as a black cherry on there. And this guy, it's more black cherry and raspberry.
Okay.
I would go on the second one.
Yeah, we get some questions about doing water in between.
Yeah, feel free. Absolutely. We have crackers and cheese, which we're using in between. Feel free to swish some water as you jump back and forth. I'm gonna have a little bit more.
Jeff, we're both in agreement. We're smelling and tasting more like minerals and like rockiness in the first one compared to the second one. Yeah, are you getting that too?
Is that the white that you put in, or what
No,
is it?
no, that is the soil.
Not
That's
that
the
you
soil
put
coming
in.
through, right? So I would expect to get in the first one a little bit more of that minerality, a little more obvious part of it, some granite kind of quality. And then the second one, as far as when you get to those terroir driven flavors, the second one will give you a little bit more of like a red clay and a cedar kind of effect.
Is it too early to say which one I like better?
Yes. We will get to that.
Oh, we should have put in a Zoom quiz
Mhm.
so that
But-
we could have polled you guys, but
And the tannins in the Australian are more aggressive. So yeah, they're definitely a little more like the first one comes in with that velvet smooth and then tightens up. This guy does not start. This guy comes in with the tannins right away, lets you feel its presence, has lift. So with that in mind, you could go with a heartier steak, something with a little more fattiness to it with the second wine than you could the first. They are very similar, and you wouldn't go wrong with either. But the heartier, if you had heavier sauces, then you would go towards something with a little more tannin to cleanse the palate in between bites.
okay.
That's that wonderful part about tannins help cleanse the palate so that you can enjoy the next bite that much more.
Jeff,
Yes.
you said it has lift.
That's my description for it. That's for kind of lifting the previous bite of food off the palate. So it's my, that's kind of my description on there. To make a practical application, we talked about this last week when we took a bite of cheese. It took 2 to 3 sips to kind of lift the
brie.
cheese off the palate when we had the brie because of its creaminess.
Right.
To then get the full effect of the tannins again, because the tannins were working on lifting and cleansing on
Right.
the palate.
Okay.
So that's what I meant by that, Paul.
So if you have something that's like a cream sauce
Mhm.
with that, then definitely the second one, because it's gonna lift that off better. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be a little better on it.
Okay.
Or if you have a more marbled steak,
Okay.
you go with a leaner steak with the first one, like a filet mignon,
Mhm.
and a more marbled steak with the second.
Okay.
So we have to kind of give some insight on, we have flank steak and chimichurri with roasted bell peppers and sweet potatoes. And so when I had the Australian one at first, I wasn't super crazy about it, but it pairs so well with the food. It's an excellent
right.
food wine.
So nice.
Yeah. And as you sip on it, if you'll stick with the Australian for a minute and let it kind of open up, it has more peppery qualities, whereas
Definitely.
the first wine goes from fruit into kind of more of those mineral driven qualities. The second one gets a bit more of a peppercorn going on and some coffee flavors in there as well.
Chris and Robin, we wish we were there to help you with the steak. And what was that again?
Chimichurri, and some
Roasted vegetables and stuff like that. We would
sweet
love to have
potatoes.
everyone here.
sweet potato and roasted red pepper.
Nice.
We all did a special pizza from New York Pizza.
Hey,
Oh, hey, there
you're
you go.
good though.
All right, well, let's jump over and talk about, now that we've discussed what we're tasting, let's talk about where they're from and fill in some of those blanks as far as why we're tasting them. Let's go ahead and move forward. All right, so here we are. Let's start in Washington. We are drinking from over here in the Columbia Valley. The Columbia Valley is kind of interesting in that you will find wines on the market from Washington mainly, but you will find Oregonian Columbian Valley wine as well, because this is the border.
Goes across.
Right.
both.
So here we're drinking from this area tonight.
It's further inland than I expected it to
Well,
be.
and because of that, it's much warmer and sunnier than most people ever expect
Sure.
for Washington. They think of Washington, it's going to be wet and rainy all the time. And it's not that. That is not what this area is like at all. It's actually warm and sunny during the summer. And they have an extremely long growing season. So here we are zooming in a little bit. We're down here we're drinking from Little Walla Walla, Horse Haven, and down in Yakima in general. It's a little collection of all of it. So here is the Columbia Valley vineyards, a good representative picture. So hilly, and if you'll notice something, it's like you look at this, that soil that seems gray, it's because it's gray. So Columbia Valley is well-drained volcanic soils. So it's a combination of
ash.
Yeah, it's ash, basalt, and sandy soils, high minerality.
I was just going to say that's why we're tasting that minerality.
Right.
then.
And so
Okay.
that's where that minerality is, the basalt that came out of that volcano mixed in with the sand and the oil and the soil there. It drains really fast. So that helps stress the grapes, which gives us that, that all important stressing the grapes. It has minerality without a rich organic amount of compounds in there. So there is a struggle. They actually have nice warm weather. Like I said, they get, their growing season really starts very easily in March all the way through October, way up in Washington. I mean, that's almost what we have in Florida.
Yeah.
Lots of sun.
Not grapes.
When they say warm, they mean in the 80s. So they're in the low 80s during their warm season, which sounds wonderful if the warmest season was in the low 80s. Yeah. But that is what we're getting. And that I think covers a little bit about what we're tasting that's different.
Oh, let me go back to the Washington.
Jump over here. Of the grapes grown in the Columbia Valley, here you can see a little bit more. So Syrah is not the most popular. They grow largely the Bordeaux varietals up there. So Bordeaux would be Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Chardonnay. Well, Chardonnay, excuse me, that's Burgundy. But Syrah is not insignificant, and it's a solid amount. It's blended with a lot of their cabs. I like the fact that they went with really featuring what they can do in the Columbia Valley. This the wine here, the winery is owned by Chateau Saint Michel. So I think we've all seen Chateau Saint Michel's wines, all on the grocery store shelves and that type of thing. And they make many different levels of wine and some wonderful wines. What they've been doing lately is partnering with some incredible winemakers around the world who wanted access to these incredible places in the New World, but didn't have any property there. So they partnered with Michel Gassier, which I actually have several wines from him in the store, from the Rhone in France, and Philippe Camby. And those guys came over. Camby chooses where they want to get the grapes from, and then Gassier is the winemaker.
Okay.
And then they use the locations and the facilities controlled by Chateau Saint Michel, which completes the circle.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so here we have some wonderful Frenchmen coming over and making from their point of view, a French wine with American grapes. And something we've seen time and time again, the French tend to prefer a more velvety structure to their wines.
Sure.
Like when we had the Mas Damas cab from Languedoc a couple of weeks ago. That was a velvety cab. All right, so now we'll jump over to Australia. So now with our Penfolds, we're in South Australia. We're drinking from this area right here, which contains the Barossa Valley is the most prestigious valley within South Australia. We have grapes here that come from Barossa, Adelaide Plains, the Clare, all put together. Adelaide itself, the city, is where the winery, the tasting room is.
So this one, what's the makeup of the blend of grapes? I don't remember you saying that for the Australian one.
Oh, the Australian one is 70% Syrah, 30% Cab.
Okay.
So it actually, whereas the blending, which is not uncommon.
The Pundit was like 4 or 5 different grapes, and this one's just 2.
And they were all grapes from Southern Rhone.
Okay.
And then here we have, get over here, and they make so much great Cab down in Australia, and they love blending the two, whether it's Cab, Syrah, Cab, or Shiraz in their case. They love blending them back and forth. So
Where's
that
the
gives us
Duker winery in comparison to this one?
What about it?
Say it again.
Where's the Molly Duker winery in comparison to this one?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'll Google it for you.
Okay, thanks. But the cab is giving us some of that. It's playing on the tightness of the Syrah and giving us that more aggressive, the more aggressive tannins. And the Cabernet Sauvignon is also enhancing the more red fruit qualities in here. So getting us a little bit more of that raspberry and red cherry rather than all black cherry, and certainly not blueberries I'm not getting in this one.
Oh, no. And that pepperiness is coming out more. I feel like I'm liking it more and more as it's opening more.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And we'll keep talking about that. Now, the pepperiness is not from the cab. The pepperiness is from the Shiraz.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a quality of Syrah.
Great.
We're all feeling like the finish is smoother on the Pundit than the Penfolds. I
think the whole.
I don't know how that relates.
No, you're exactly right. And that's that was by design by the French winemakers, where they're working with less aggressive tannins and much more. They want to create a velvety experience rather than the Penfolds, which is a little bit more of an aggressive experience on their wine.
What's funny is it just, and I haven't been either place, but from my American point of view, it tends to mirror like the different cultures of the countries, I think of France as, especially with winemaking, just more refined in general. And then, Australia as being more aggressive, Oh
yeah, I can see that.
You've got the outback and you've got in Florida, we have a lot of things that can kill you, but they have even more.
They do. That they do. You're right.
And I just feel like that aggressiveness, I can taste it in the wine compared to the Washingtonian wine, which is, I guess, a French wine. Right. It's an American wine, but French style.
It is. And that French styling is, like I said, it's by design, and that velvet quality, that velvet feeling you're getting while drinking the Washingtonian is exactly what they were going for. It's not so much an aspect that they couldn't have made that happen as that they didn't want to. And you're right. And that comes down to what is the common French style, which is more of a velvety textured wine, because they don't want it to be too aggressive.
So is it called Syrah in France also? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I look at you and you're like, yeah, yes.
I did not.
Okay.
I'm just answering.
So if we were to have a French Syrah, it would taste similar to the Pundit?
It would, from Southern Rhone, yes.
Okay.
If we did Northern Rhone, it would be entirely different.
Entirely different.
So
just I can make up the commute.
Yeah, the Northern Rhone. So Southern Rhone, yes, because Southern Rhone is warmer.
Yeah.
And this for them is a warmer area.
Sure.
The Northern Rhone, which is their most famous area, is called the Hermitage, which references a mountain that had a monk's hermitage on top. And there's a lot of wind from the Mistrals. It's chillier. They get a very different effect. Those wines are
thicker skins and stuff.
Farmhouse with bacon fat and all kinds of peppercorns thrown in. It's a very aggressive and very different, very smoky. You have to get through all of that to even get to the fruit.
Okay.
It's a very old world experience, the Hermitage.
Okay.
And a very expensive experience.
Well, I mean, and just the name seems old world.
Oh, right.
The Hermitage.
Yeah.
You know.
I'll tell you, I've had very little Hermitage. I've had more Crozet Hermitage, which is the next hill over, which that makes very similar wines. They're fantastic, but it is an old world experience. So, I mean, this guy is our French influenced Washingtonian is certainly in that, when we did Southern Rhone Red Blend several months ago, I said, it's one of the friendlier to American French style wines. Right. Which it holds true. And then the other ones are a wonderful experience, but it is a very different, a very significant stylized experience of wine. Let's jump back in, please.
This also, before we move on, I don't know if you're going to talk about this. This has one of my favorite labels ever, the Pundit. I love this label. Like, I'd love to see more Raptor labels like that, Like, I just think it's I think it's fantastic.
I'm going to throw, by the way, another tasting note in now that the pundits had a minute to open up for me and I've been talking. The milk chocolate quality is starting to come out on the back finish of that, along with the minerality, which is a common Syrah quality as well, is that kind of a chocolatey, which this one is kind of, because it's that rich velvety side, it's more of a kind of a milk chocolatey little effect. It's subtle in there, a chocolate covered cherry kind of thing. If any of that were to come out in the Shiraz, I would expect it to be more baker's chocolate with that bitter chocolate.
Bitter. Okay. You wanted me to.
I'm going with, sorry, I have to interrupt. I'm going with French romantic lovers versus Australian outback gator wrestlers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that, Rob. I like that.
Right.
Yeah. And that was one of the things I wanted to work with this. I knew, well, I had a strong suspicion that everyone would like both, but it would split along the lines of who likes more aggressive wines and who likes the more velvety wines. And I know which one Julie wants. She's not here for me to make fun of.
Maybe,
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Let's try that over.
I think we both like the from the land down under. We're both on Australia, Team Australia for sure.
All right, not yet. Not yet.
All right.
Though I am surprised by what he just said. Okay, let's do the next slide.
Yeah, Richard. I noticed.
All right, so here we are.
That, by the way, I hello Joe for me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
He was telling you to say hello to Joe.
I will, definitely.
Please, please say, Joe, just for the rest of you, Joe and I swam at the University of Florida in the 60s. So that's how I met Jeff and found out his father-in-law was this young lady's father, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they competed in high school too.
Yes, we did, actually.
Yeah.
I won.
That is not the story that I have heard.
Well, he forgets a lot of stories I told Jeff about.
Oh, right.
But anyway, I found that the Penfold, as it sat here and this wide open wine glass had a time to breathe a little bit more, became much smoother and didn't have quite as much of a bite to it as it's sitting here for a few minutes. And I didn't aerate, which I usually aerate and decant, but I didn't. But I found it just the time we've been talking, I wasn't really so big on this because it had such a tough bite. But
sure.
After it sat here for about 10 minutes being talking, it's become much smoother to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but
no, you're totally right. It's that's part of it opening up. And I agree. I purposely did not aerate this week's wines either because I knew they would open up quickly. They'll open up in 15 to 20 minutes. They don't need the extra. And I knew we would talk at least that long. And I love experiencing the change.
Right.
But you're right. Those tannins are rounding out. They did begin very neatly and kind of tight. And you're right, Richard. They're getting a little rounder. And I was wondering, I couldn't figure out which one you were empty on.
Yes, I'm actually almost empty on both, but yeah.
Let's refill.
Okay. Yeah, and I actually, well, I'm liking both of them as they open up more and more. But so the fact that they open so quickly, let's talk about aging with that then.
Okay. These guys are, it's not that they can't age, but they're really meant to be consumed within, say, 5 years of release. That doesn't mean 5 years from bottling because this 2015 is not on its last legs.
Okay.
So this guy's good until about 2025. So that'd be 10 years from bottling.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how would you know? You'd have to ask wherever you're purchasing it. This is like, when was it bottled then? Because see, if you're telling me 5 years, I'm going to look at 2015 and think, oh, I need to drink it.
Yeah.
Now.
When I said 5 years from release, that's because I already know that. I shouldn't have even gone there.
Okay.
Just look at when it was bottled. So within 10 years of bottling on these guys, they certainly have enough to handle that time. Obviously, because the Penfolds, this is their most recent release and they've given it 5 years in the bottle already, which by the way, applaud to Penfolds on that for sitting on the wine and letting it become what it should, for a bottle of wine that still sells for under $30.
Sure.
So, good on them for putting the investment in on behalf of creating wine that is going to, be excellent serving their brand. So, And they have more stress on them for this, since they did name it after one of their most famous winemakers. That's why it's called Max's, which
Oh, okay.
we'll just discuss that at the very end.
Okay, let me
Let's
share.
jump back over.
There we go.
So here we have the South Australian vineyards. We talked about the mineral content in South Australia when we drank the Tate the Ballbuster red blend. Still the best name ever in the wine industry. That Ballbuster was grown in very similar areas, a little higher elevation than this, but you can see the clay. So they have high iron content. Clay is a hallmark of the area, which is why I was saying you might get a bit of that kind of a clay, red clay type minerality rather than the granite minerality we're getting from Washington.
Sure.
Which is really basalt, but I think of it as tasting very similar to the granite qualities that I've gotten in some French areas. Like I said, well draining red clay. They do have some gray clay in the area where they cannot grow because it just retains moisture, but the red does not. And like I said, high
gray clay, like what we have here.
Yes, they have a little gumbo clay which they have to avoid in that whole area, but they've got plenty of red for them to plant in. And the red is fast draining, and it has that nice oxide content, you know, the iron, which allows them to get some nice terroir driven quality to their vines. Still very low in organic compounds, so their plants have to struggle. They have lots of minerals, but not much organics to work with. And they're able to control the water very well. They do get quite a bit of water here naturally, but it's drained so quickly, it doesn't retain it, so the grapes don't become sodden.
Okay, so they're not controlling their irrigation then. They're doing it like it's just whatever.
It's a combination where they want.
Okay.
Yeah. And they are also a ton of sun down in this area during the growing season. Similar, Syrah requires a long growing season. Syrah has a very thick skin, which, I mean, we're looking at the intense colors and flavors on this. That comes down to a very thick skinned grape. And it takes, because of that thick skin, longer to come to full maturity and ripeness. So they need warm, lots of sun growing areas if you're going to be growing Syrah generally.
So that's why that longer growing season in Washington, you said it went through October, basically, that works well there too. Okay.
And and you flip the years because it's the southern hemisphere. You flip the part of the years, but they all have an equally long growing season here. Their high temperatures in their warmest months are similar. They're about 5 degrees warmer. So we're talking about mid 80s instead of low 80s. Still sounds really, really nice compared to what we get in Florida. I'm just saying. Here is the Syrah or Shiraz grape.
And I guess, like we commented last week, that spherical grape you said is what all wine grapes look like, rather than the like more oblong shape that we're used to just grabbing at the grocery store.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. You're going to see that they're round.
They look like
that classic shape. They're not as genetically manipulated as what we're drinking. You know, I mean, eating from the store.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. By the way, this is for you, Linda. Grape anatomy by request. So here we have obviously the skins, but the skin goes all the way into the peripheral zone, which is most of the flavor that we're getting, and the tannins. This is where we're getting our sugars for the most part. And then on the very inside, we get the malic acid. So we have an acidity here that can go away if you over ripen your grapes, but this acidity stays pretty much permanently. Okay. So it really helps keep that freshness to your grape without beginning just a fruit bomb. However, the hard part, which is why pressing is an art, when you press these grapes, you don't want to crack the seed because the seed is very bitter. And you will, if you were to crack a bunch of seeds, if you just crushed away, you would get a very, very unattractively flavored wine. And then I always like to take a look at where we're drinking and talk about them. So this is the Chateau Saint Michel tasting room. And
I'll switch back. I keep switching it with whenever you switch, you know, between the two.
And then here's the Penfold tasting room.
I didn't even drink the first one.
Oh, sorry, I went too fast. And then here's the Penfold's tasting room. By the way, both of these guys are negociants. So they buy their grapes for these. They control it with long-term contracts, and they work in the fields with their growers. So their winemakers are having the farmers grow it the way they would want to. They just don't actually own the land, but it is farmed, and the fruit is created and managed the way that they, the actual winemaker wants. So it's not that they have nothing to do with it, and they just say, okay, let's see what we get.
Okay.
It's a very,
They have influence over it
yeah, a lot of influence over it. So.
because they buy so much of it. Or,
Well, they have a complete contract for that land, which will include
Okay.
you will grow them the way I want.
Okay.
So,
Did you want me to go back to that or not?
yeah, go ahead and go back. Let me see who's who.
This one is the second one.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
I need more wine.
Yeah, we have glasses that look exactly the same, and you would think owning a wine shop we would have those wine charms, and we don't. So I marked the glasses. So
I blame anyone but me.
We went stemmed and stemless, so there was no chance that we would mess this up.
that was very wise.
That was a good idea.
I know a guy who sells those wine charms, all kinds of shit when it comes
Yeah.
to
I was just saying to him, we should really have wine charms in the store
Right.
because I would really like those.
It's a good idea.
Oh,
Yeah.
and by the way, I will say now that the Shiraz have just refreshed my glass, that baker's chocolate is coming out.
Okay, let me try.
You give it a shot. It's like a like a little bit of that bitters baker's chocolate playing around with the cherry.
I totally taste that. I did get the milk chocolate. I don't get the baker's chocolate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's a nice and a lot of really nice raspberry quality to that. And then I love it finishing with those peppercorns.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I
It's a
taste
great
that.
wine. Definitely big, bold, lots of fruit, but it's got a lot of great qualities. And that's the thing to me, if you're dealing with big, bold, new world fruit-driven wines, you need to have the secondary qualities to give character to your wine. Otherwise, it's just going to be this flabby, fruity mess that people perceive as sweet, but it's just so much fruit. So let's jump back and we'll finish up.
Okay.
Boy, that is changing the pennant.
The next slide.
Next slide, please.
Okay.
All
Here
right.
we go.
So both of these guys are pulling scores up in there in the outstanding level. I've said before, 90 points being an outstanding wine. There are people out in the market that consider 90 points as their entry level for wine drinking. I think that is an unfortunate misunderstanding, not their fault. It's created by the marketing of these things, which constantly point out 90, 90, 90, that, why drink anything less? Honestly, if you're drinking an 87 point wine, that's a very good wine with special qualities. There's nothing wrong with an 87 point wine. So if you're drinking a $15 87 point wine, get all over it. And especially because you're probably going to find that you like it just as much. I mean, there's so much subjectivity to wine ratings. It can come down to personal preference for the wine, for the rating, the person rating the wine themselves. Maybe they had a good day or a bad day and they jump from, but when you get to 90 plus consistently, so if you hit around 90, that's a fantastic wine, and really give it the applause it deserves. That takes a lot to get there. But when you get to 92 and above, it becomes really difficult. 92 and above is really needs to stand out within its price range. And I think that's a lot of what we see in that. Another point on that. So if you're for example, we're talking about wines that are under $30 getting 93 points. I would say in the under $30 category, these are definitely standout wines. So I get the rating. I'm right there with them. If you were to drink this versus $1,000 Monastrell, which I've had, yes, it's going to be different. That you've got to base that, change that in your head a little bit. But that's also explains why a lot of times I explain to people, when you see a 92 point champagne, and by champagne, I mean true champagne from Champagne, France, that is an exceptional growing region, and everyone knows that. And so when they almost all get 90 points, almost all of them get 90, 89 points, and they should, that's great. But when you say a champagne that is 92 points, it's really hard for them to get that because they give them a lot of friction because they're all so good. They don't move above. So they kind of give them, you won't go below here, but they don't go above 90, 91 very easily. So when you do see a 92 plus point champagne as an example, that means it's harder for them to get that than for these guys to get this 93 because they're in the sub 30 category. You're in Australia, you know, so people are thinking a little less of what's required of you to get into the game at that point. So anyway, it's complex, but I will say 93 point rating thrown on both of these guys. I totally get it. I think when you're talking about around $25, it's an exceptional value. Really well-made wines. I think they're great.
I like the Syrah tremendously more than I like the Shiraz. Like it, maybe not so much on my points ratings. Like the Shiraz, I would still probably give an 89 to, but the Syrah to me is like a solid 92 or something like that. Like I love this. I think is extremely flexible. I think it works well with everything. This I think is good. Or this again, I have this the Shiraz. I like a lot, but I think works really well with food. And I enjoy that way more when I was eating. I had this kind of before we started eating, and I was like, yeah, this is all right. This is pretty good. And has benefited tremendously from eating.
I can go there.
That food pairing.
I think that the Shiraz needed more time to open up too.
I agree.
So there's part of that too, where
I agree.
The difference between open and now is bigger with the Penfolds than with the Tenant.
See, I've always found that every Penfold that I've ever drank has to open up. Takes a long time to open up. So as they get, I've always found that with them. So I like the Penfolds much better now than when we first opened it.
So Harriet you're in the Keys now, right, Harriet? Okay. Yeah. So and now you're on the camera. Jerry's not like totally taking up.
Lily's on the other side too. So we're on my computer for one thing. So
there you go. Because normally we just see Jerry and Harriet.
Yeah.
That's because to be on camera.
That's not true.
Well, you shouldn't.
We'll do our last couple of slides, then we'll have a toast, and then we can just talk and have fun.
I want to do I want to see who likes what better. We can do the slides first, but before we close up, I'd like to.
That sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah, because I'm almost done with those.
Mine's a toss-up.
Richard wants to say something.
What do I want to say? I think they're a toss-up personally.
I just said, do you want me to unmute? And he goes.
I think the one is lighter, and it depends on where you're pairing it with food.
Right.
And I think the second one, as some young lady just said, Penfold takes time to open up. It needs more time to breathe. I think a lot of the acidity moves out of the Penfold as long as it's been opened. If it's in a big glass, it's in a decanter, it's gone through an aerator and a decanter, and it's had a time to breathe. I think it becomes more palatable. Once again, I think it pairs well with other types of foods than the first one, and you guys are the pair. I mean, your husband's awesome, by the way. Just
thank you. That's nice.
He paid me a lot, by the way.
That's right. All that free wine and beer I slipped him today really paid off.
Exactly.
I would share the sentiment though, is that the Penfold, when we came around to it, the first thing that I said was that it comes across a little more aggressive. It doesn't finish as smoothly as the Pundit does, but as time has gone by, it has smoothed over now and it is finishing more gracefully than it did when we started. I just haven't figured out which one's smoother on the back end yet.
I think that kind of speaks to the fact that they knew this about their wine, which is why for example, I just brought this into the store and it's a 5 years in the bottle already.
Oh,
So
right.
they knew they needed to hold it back. So think about how tight and wound up this was
5
when they
years
first
ago.
bottled it. Yeah. So
that
when they
makes
were
sense.
doing barrel tastings, they said,
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
we might need to reserve this back a little bit.
Yes. I do love that Richard keeps calling you young.
Well, that's a nice guy.
Get the mic if you need it.
Yeah, somebody's throwing me under the bus again. I can't.
All right, you know what? Since we're here, because it doesn't matter if we do it before or after with the last couple of slides I have,
Okay.
why don't we go ahead and make our votes for, okay, so we wanted a head-to-head tasting was the request, and here we brought them in. So what are your thoughts? Let's vote for winner of the night. And then I'll tell you who's right and wrong.
Unequivocally, number 2. 2 all the way.
But
No questions asked.
I'm
Okay.
also, I've like, you know me, I drink anything, not anything, but I love wine. I'm wondering if our Washington wine, because the cork fell apart, I'm wondering if it's a bad bottle. Like it's everything everybody else is saying about it. We're like, we don't get that. Like,
You know what? That could be a thing. I mean, it's not that it doesn't happen. I had a bad bottle opened up by a wine rep just a week ago. It happens.
yeah, no, for sure. And that's what I was telling him. Because he was like, are you sure? Maybe we just don't like it. I was like, I don't not like red wine.
Yeah,
And
you know,
Cork it and bring it in.
cork it, bring it in. I want to taste it.
Yeah.
Well, we had to pour it out because remember the cork fell apart.
Oh.
So I actually strained it. I strained it. I aerated and strained it to get all the cork out.
That's
Probably why, yeah.
So the cork maybe that's why it went bad. Maybe something about the cork.
It
Because
could be.
everybody's like, oh, it's so fruit forward. And we're like, oh, this tastes like dirt to us.
Oh, yeah. Then that was
Yeah,
corked.
that's not good.
Yeah, that was corked. You got a bad
So
one.
this was, so number 2, we're like, this is, I almost,
Yeah.
You only have 2.
Yeah. In comparison to a corked wine, it must be amazing.
Yeah.
It's not very often where we like agree. And we're both just like in 100% agreement. I'm just like, yes, all right. We agree about that.
Right. Brian, I know
Brian, we love you,
style that
but you don't
prefer, and there is no way that you prefer the Penfold.
That's what I was shocked
Yeah,
to
well,
hear for the Penfolds.
Yeah.
For
well,
sure.
if you
Look.
try our bottle of number 1, you'll understand.
And any Penfolds person, look, take no offense. They're both absolutely delicious, but Brian is a velvet wine kind of guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
you shared about that. So say that thing again that you shared. It was several weeks ago though, but about the percentage of risk with real cork.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had the numbers in front of me at the time, but
But it was
yeah,
a
no,
lot.
there's.
With
I
the
can't remember.
synthetic cork we
It
talked
was-
about, it's
I think it
just,
was close to 10% failure rate with
Mhm.
with the
10
natural
or 15,
cork.
something
Yeah.
like that. It was a lot.
That was when we
failure
were
rate with
talking
natural
about
cork.
Willamette Pinot Noir and
So you
Willamette,
said you had issues with
Oregonian
getting the
wines in
cork
general. use
The first one,
cork, and for that reason,
the Pundit.
whether it's Stelvin enclosure, which is a screw job, or synthetic cork, it's a great idea because you do get failures from natural
Mhm.
cork.
So, okay, wait, I'm going to go through on our screen. Like, Ricardo, which one do you prefer? I'm going left to right.
I prefer the Penfolds, definitely.
Okay.
It just has a lot more depth to it as it's opened up. And yeah, I'm in Washington though, so I'm used to Columbia wines.
Ah,
all
okay.
So
Okay.
it's a little different, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then Harriet and Jerry, your whole crew there, do you all agree or what do you think?
We concur, yes.
And which one you prefer which one?
Penfold.
The Penfolds as well. Okay.
But I still stand by the fact that I would drink a bottle of the Pundit any day of the week.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. And then I know like Julie and Brian and then Brenda and Linda, I saw you guys put up the Pundit, right? You prefer that one?
Mhm.
Okay. And then Chris and Robin, you prefer the Pundit, right?
Pundit for drinking, Penfolds for food pairing.
I love the Pundit.
Voting for tonight.
Pundit. I love Pundit.
All right. Okay. And then Ayers Group, what do you think?
Aaron's.
So I think, I agree with the young lady that just spoke, by the way. I think the first wine is great for drinking, and I think it probably goes well with maybe some cheeses or something. 'cause it's lighter. The Penfold, I think, has really opened up and has an incredible flavor after it's had a chance to breathe.
Right. And I think with the steak or like, you know, a really nice meal, it would definitely.
I think the first one is a great wine to have just for sitting around drinking some wine. And I think the second wine is a great wine.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are kind of like, it depends what you're doing then.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And
I would almost call it like a 1-in-1 for both of those.
yeah, no, okay. So one.
Yeah, there you go. 50-50.
Okay, all right, there we go. And then 1-in-1 for that one too. Okay. And then who am I on our screen? Okay, so Linda and Paul.
Yep.
Yeah, so I said the Penfold, but Linda and Heather said they like the Pundit.
Okay, so you
There
guys
you go.
are split also. All right, this is great.
I love how split
I
this
love
is.
that it's split. Yeah, and then
I am a genius.
I think the Snyders said they Pundit. You guys both like Rachel's like no.
No, so Rachel's all about Penfold.
Rachel likes the Penfold and David likes the Pundit.
I'm 100% Pundit, but that changed far more drastically over the process than the Pundit did.
I agree. I think this is lovely. I mean, I'm with Harriet all day, any day, every day.
Mhm.
But this one, she was pretty much the same beginning, middle, and end. And this one was a very different beginning, a very different middle, and a very different end. And
Yes.
so kind of
Which
like-
isn't necessarily positive.
it is for me as a red wine drinker, but I feel like we've got sisters, but they're definitely not twins.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so your vote is split then?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then where are we? Bubbles and Kiwi?
Pundit.
Pundit?
No.
Well, he said pundit. I don't know what she's.
So am I here? Okay. So now that I've learned so much about what and how things work. At first, I did not like the Penfolds because it was sharp and it needed to breathe.
Right.
This is what I would call a table wine. It reminds me, and don't get mad because I actually drink it because if it's a table wine, I'll have it. It reminded me of Apothic. It's smooth, it's chocolatey. It just
Look at Jeff's face. Jeff's like, okay, you can't come in the store anymore. I'm sorry.
Jeff's flinching
but
a little
listen
bit.
to what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, no, I love you, Kiwi. I'm gonna hold on.
okay, but like, I'm dead. But I really like the Penfolds. And I don't remember you. I know you had a statistic on who would like which one better. So did I fail?
You like the Penfolds?
Yeah.
I thought you would like the Pundit more.
So the Pundit, I actually, we had dinner beforehand. And so while I was having the Pundit, I had a piece of chocolate. But now I'm having cheese with the Penfolds. So it literally both, I feel like I'm just hand me the shovel and I'll just start digging.
No, you're
But I
good. You
like-
totally, by the way, eating chocolate with the Pundit is a great idea.
And that's what I thought, because it was like after dinner and I was having a glass of wine. And maybe just by association and thanks 2020, I would have chocolate with red wine. And so, but the Penfolds, I'm having cheese. And I mean, I really like how it opened up. And we did actually use 2 different types of wine glasses, knowing that this was probably going to be more on the sweeter side. So I got this big bad boy. And then it actually surprised me because I normally don't like cabs, but there was more cab in the Penfolds than there was here. So
Right. Yeah.
I might have graduated book 2.
No, I think
In
actually
wine school.
I think your enjoyment of tannic wines and being bigger and punchier and a little grabbier has improved. Not improved because that would be subjective, but it is, you prefer grippier wines now than you did originally. So you've actually moved in, and I'm not saying that's good, bad, or sideways because you don't have to like tannic wines in order to make good wine, but I have seen a change in what Kiwi likes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as she's been like coming to the tastings and stuff. So yeah.
I don't know if we're ever going to regret that we have recordings where I'm referring to people by their Tipple's nickname.
Right. I call them both Bubbles and Kiwi instead of John and Myra.
That's
so.
okay. It's basically for us. No one else watches.
Yeah, there you go. And then
so.
Russ and friends this evening.
Pinaple con los amigos.
Yes.
La piña.
As your people say.
Yeah, that's
Mi amigos are divided.
Okay. All right. 1 for 1. And then I don't know if Consuelo, I know you don't want to be on camera. Do you want to type in the chat box what you prefer? Because right now we are.
I think she already did.
Really?
Oh, let me see.
Oh, Pundit. If
Okay.
no breathing is needed. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Very
Just
good.
saw it. So we are almost evenly split. We are 9 Pundit, 10 Penfold. So I mean that's pretty darn
Yeah,
even.
that is.
Yeah. So yes, you did a great
That
job.
was what I wanted to do.
Did you guys get our vote? We have 2 pundit and 1 1 pundit and 2 of the
Okay, so
Penfold.
then it is 10 to
10 to 10.
exactly evenly split.
So Elizabeth,
Okay.
what is your vote?
Okay, so early on, which is going to surprise you, I definitely liked the Pundit more, though. Even though the Penfolds is a more aggressive wine, but like for sure, I like the Pundit more. Now, as it has opened up, I agree because at first I was like, I'm not really liking the Penfolds, but now I don't know. You know, really, I like both of them. And at this point, I would vote for both. But early on, when we just opened it, I was like, for sure, Pundit. So I was actually surprised because Julie and I are usually on the same wavelength with what we like. But now, that's why I keep tasting both. So you look at my glasses; they're almost exactly alike now.
No,
because I keep going back and forth. I'm
actually right there with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
I think if you do this again, Jeff, you need to say either A or B because like everyone's saying, well, if I had a bacon cheeseburger with jalapenos and this and that, it would be freaking awesome. But like no one's saying like A or B, you know, like which
What I
one
do
is it?
like,
A or B? Yeah.
I do like that everyone's starting to think in the form of pairings and that kind of a thing and situational drinking because that does make a big difference. And I like the fact that I think what people are doing is splitting hairs and that they really like both wines.
They're both great.
Yeah, can
So
we all
they're
agree
both
with that?
very good. And I
Like
think
bravo to both.
Yeah, yay! The consensus though that the Pundit is a drinkable wine, not necessarily with food, is awesome because then you can show up to a house with this bottle, you can all enjoy it, and it'll be a good. The people go, oh, this is awesome,
right?
And you enjoy it. Where this, if you have someone who likes wine and likes to see things evolve, and you are in a space where you can show off a little knowledge, then you can bring both and be like, duh.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Well, and if you aerated it, if you let it breathe, it would be a different story for the Penfolds too. Even if it wasn't people that,
But yeah,
like
if you're just drinking wine with friends, it is really nice to know that you can grab something that is good quality from the Pundit. You don't have to like put it against something full of mega purple. Because
which we would not have in our store. So
no, I actually have I have the answer to Apothic in the store.
Oh, okay.
It's called Line 39. It actually
I
has.
love that. Awesome.
Yeah. By the way, did you know Line 39 has 1/4 the residual sugar versus Apothic, but is based on the same flavor profile?
No.
What does that mean?
All right. So residual sugar, nobody wants all those extra empty calories and that kind of a thing from added sugar, which should not be happening anyway. But so Line 39 is a very reasonably priced, delicious wine that tastes almost exactly the same as a very popular brand, Apothic. But it is vinted. It is actually vinted in order to get those flavors. So it doesn't have residual sugar. So when you get done, it's got many fewer calories and many fewer carbs to be absorbed by the body. So you're going to obviously, we all know we don't want unneeded carbs, but B, much like you would
less of a
hangover potential
Okay.
issues, much less, that kind of thing. So that's why I carry that one, because it's almost the exact same price. And it's just a better crafted wine. It just is. So.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm mute.
Yeah, what wine is that? The skinny wine?
It's called Line 39.
Line 39. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Judy needs to drink a lot of
Skinny
lime
wine.
and
Oh, by the way,
I mean, at the end, like
not for a week. No, for hangover. No, I was going the wrong way. Please. I'll be in deathbed today.
I'll pass the shovel to you.
Exactly. I get wine. I love wine, but it gives me a headache. It doesn't matter if it's white or red, either or. It gives me a headache. So, you know, and I suffer through it, and I take an Advil in the morning when I get up. But you know, it's okay. But it would be really nice to have a wine that maybe wouldn't give me that you know after effect, but also you know,
Yes.
be less calories.
Sure.
Don't
And,
drink as much. Or
like Harriet was showing you,
More for me.
there's a product called wine wands, which we're going to be bringing in the store too.
Yay!
The
Oh
headache.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
the
saw
headaches
those
that
at
come from sulfites.
Total Wines, and they're expensive.
They are. It's the only way I can drink red wine. It's the only way I can do it anymore.
What does the wine wand do?
It
pulls
removes the sulfite.
and the histamines out of it.
It's the sulfites out. Yeah.
And the histamines too. The histamines.
So it doesn't
are what you're
inflame.
reacting to.
Yeah, because some people react very strongly,
Right.
and so they become inflamed, and between the sulfites and the histamines in it,
I
leads to the headache and that kind of a thing. And the wine wand takes it out and does not affect the flavor of the wine. It's an amazing product.
Yeah.
So I got a question because you know we live in Palm Beach 90% of the time. So
Right.
how the hell, excuse my language, how the heck are we going to get on your podcast when we can't? You're going to ship me my wine? I'll pay for it.
Actually, in the state of Florida, I can ship it. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because this
That'll be
is
fun.
really fun, and you know we could bring a lot of people to our house, and you know. have some fun.
fantastic.
Richard, we can totally ship within the state of Florida. It's very easy.
Don't move to Georgia.
Yeah.
I can't ship you anything.
Or Pennsylvania.
Trust me, I don't go north.
Yeah,
There you go.
There you go. All right, let's finish up our last couple of things. And
Okay,
then,
and then Richard can swear as much as he wants.
that's
to
right. Then
swear.
we can just
Yeah.
talk. Please, please. I think we have a really interesting wine to go to next week. All right, so we talked about ratings. All right, so the region of growth. So we always talk about these are the wine growing areas of the world. It has to be within this area or it will not be good. So it's interesting because we have a microclimate way up at the top that's allowing us to grow a grape that really requires one of the warmer growth areas, but it's a microclimate exception, which is, I think, kind of fun because for the most part, it's grown way down here,
Huh.
which is, you know, significant drop down.
Right.
And then you have in Australia, it's grown down here. So a little more toward the center, but you know,
Yeah. It really looks okay. So because we're talking Southern Hemisphere,
right,
it looks like it's in a lot warmer region.
right, than
than
here.
that one
yeah.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this microclimate in the it's really a fascinating area
Mhm.
that allows them to do that, and they grow great grapes there.
Just because it's further inland and sunnier.
hmm Yep, the mountainous areas blocks all that fog and
Mm.
coolness from coming in from the Pacific. Next week's wine. So we're gonna. We've been drinking a lot of red wines
lot of red
for a lot of
lately.
weeks in a row. We've got to give the white and rosé lovers a nod, and we haven't had a rosé
Oh.
since last May.
It's been a long time. We've only done one rosé since we
But
started.
we're going to make it worth your while. This is Arnott Roberts rosé.
Cool.
So this guy is Arnott Roberts, is in the Sonoma area, and Kiwi. Arnott Roberts is the guy that made the Creo.
Oh,
Yes, the Creo.
Yes.
my
He's an
heart.
amazing winemaker. So this is a rosé from the Sonoma area, actually Lake County in general, made of Portuguese grapes, grown in California, and then made into a rosé by one of the most amazing boutique winemakers in the area. It's a very wonderful wine. And
I'll take 3.
yeah, I hope you guys will join us. And you know, don't whatever your predispositions are about rosé. Rosé is a fantastic wine style, and I hope you all join us. It has its own wonderful characteristics, and we're going to start the new year with something really fun and wine geeky and interesting, and that is what I tend to do.
So I don't see it on the slide, so I'm sorry if I'm like putting you on the spot. What should we eat with that?
Okay. So rosé, you're going to go with certainly
Charcuterie?
seafood. Seafood's great. A chicken breast salad,
Okay.
something like that.
So if I did
creamier.
my shrimp scampi with that, that would be good.
Oh yes.
Okay.
That would be.
All right.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Okay.
So what are we eating with it? Because I come for the food.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So I'd say we can probably
We can stop the
about it.
share. Okay.
Yeah. So I'd say shrimp scampi and seafood across the board is great. It can handle, because it's a little more robust from the Portuguese grapes. It could handle salmon on the lighter
I was just
side.
gonna ask,
Yeah.
like salmon, swordfish, shark, that kind
Not
of
swordfish
Not
or shark,
swordfish
but
or
I would
shark.
go
Okay,
with
but
like,
salmon.
if you did like a salmon with just
Okay.
a,
So sushi.
but sushi would be fantastic.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right. Look at Kiwi's face.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard you say we have to have sushi now.
You're unmuted.
It is required. You
It's
must
required. You have to buy sushi. Yeah.
All
right, Jeff.
I can do that.
We
no
come in
problem.
the store and buy the bottle of white wine and we,
Rosé.
the rosé will be online from Palm Beach next week, not here, but.
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
you guys are great, by the way. Great couple. Let me tell you right now. Awesome.
Aw, Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And your husband is an awesome dude, by the way. I'm an old guy. He's really cool.
Thank you, Richard.
He paid me for that,
Let's
but
raise
that's
a
okay.
glass. Oh, you need wine.
I have
Which
no
one do you
wine.
want?
I drink all.
Uh-oh.
Which one do
He's
you want?
falling down on his job here.
Tragic.
This is
That's
the
this one.
An empty glass, no good.
Yeah.
All right. So
I went
let's
through both of
let's
them.
toast out, and then we're gonna stop the recording, and then we can keep talking with the after party.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.
Blancha.
Happy New
Happy New
Year.
Year.
Happy
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, you guys.